Welcome to the Donut Hole Breakfast Chat.
Is that what we are? Oh, yeah, I guess we are breakfast chat. We can count on that. I think if we were trying to produce this by showing up to a studio every day and doing it as work, A, it wouldn't be fun for us, and B, I don't think we'd keep doing it. That's how our mindset has changed about things. If it's not a work from home thing, if you had to show up somewhere, I don't think we'd do it. Dash, I don't think we'd do it.
Anything that you have to do.
I know.
Well, it's Friday, and I've made an executive decision.
Oh,
We're going to call Fridays Freaky Friday.
and?
So we'll get into a little bit of, I call hoo-ha. Other people say woo-woo, or that sort of thing. So Freaky Friday it is. What do you think?
I like it. I wish you had told me about this before so I could think of something to say, but I'm sure we'll come up with something.
Probably. Oh, we didn't order anything today, so maybe it's just you and I.
Yeah. Well, the donut holes will last a little longer if it's just you and I. Even though we're not having donut holes today, we're having.
Hey!
Oh,
Oh,
hey.
donut holes.
We didn't order anything, though.
Yeah, I know.
I just said we didn't order anything.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Come on in.
I always catch you when you're recording.
Come on
Yeah, I don't. Sorry, I don't. I know you didn't order anything. I don't have anything. I was next door, so.
in. You want coffee?
Sure.
All right. Let me get you something to drink here. How about
Yes.
a donut hole?
sure.
I eat a cherry scone.
We saved the last hole for you.
Oh, I don't know. I don't want you to get copyright hit with me humming the Last Dance.
All right, I'm mad at both of you. If you knew that it was Mod Podge, you should have been much clearer because I actually read the label yesterday and I found out it's not Mod Podge, as I was so insistent, and thank you for not embarrassing me, but it's just Mod Podge. And I think it'll work great, but I did not start the project yesterday, just in case you were wondering, Des. I know you were very interested in my...
Nobody. I don't think anybody said anything because we didn't know what you're talking about.
Oh. That's the usual thing. And there's a certain person at this table who never listens to me and always claims that he doesn't know what I'm talking about.
I listen to you.
Yeah, and then you run out the door and that's the end of that. And the next day I quiz you on it and you don't know anything about anything. I'm beginning to think it's a Y chromosome thing. I'm sorry, it's sexist.
Yeah. Fair enough, fair
You
enough.
should have that on a T-shirt. I'm sorry, it's sexist.
That'll go over huge, especially these days. You'll get banned.
Where the Y chromosome is headed, then you might not have to suffer it forever.
No, that's
It's
right.
starting to atrophy.
You could
Yeah.
have a T-shirt that says Y, W-H-Y, with a question mark chromosome. Is that as good as your I Move It T-shirt? See, I'm full of ideas. See,
No, yeah.
I didn't say they were good. I didn't say they were good, but
I'm gonna need
You're
to give that
a
more
fool of ideas.
consideration.
I'm a jerk of all trades.
Well,
So yeah. Anyway,
What are you talking about today?
well, because it's Freaky Friday, and
he's named
of
named our Friday breakfast Freaky Friday, but he didn't
Yeah.
tell me in time to collect my thoughts about freakiness.
well, see, that's part of the plan. Actually,
Does that freak you out?
you
Yeah.
you can't really prepare yourself and expect it to be freaky.
So this will really be off the cuff and
Mm-hmm.
extemporaneous and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I think I decided to talk about dreams and sleep and stuff today because earlier this week I had what they call lucid dreaming,
Ooh, that's
and
cool.
so that's the subject basically.
Art Bell used to talk about those, and then his replacement, that gal, I forget what her first name was. They did a show on lucid dreaming, and that's a very cool thing. So it's, tell me if I'm right. It's when you're not like really out of it asleep, deep sleep, not tuned in, but it's that weird phase in between wakefulness and deep sleep where you're kind of conscious of your place in the universe and you're aware, but not either awake or dreaming. Is that?
Yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell. And some of the scientists call it a hybrid state of sleep, which that didn't take a lot of brain power to come up with that title. But
Like red-winged black?
yeah, you're kind of exactly that. That's one of those names that I always like to say that they came up with it 5 minutes before 5 on a Friday. So we really need to name this before we leave for the weekend. And the bird has red wings and the body's black. Any ideas? Anybody?
How about stripe wing bird?
Yeah. Well, luckily somebody said red-winged blackbird and they went home. Anyway, I had a really profound sort of lucid dreaming experience earlier this week, and I've had them before, but I'll launch off first of all a little bit with what I know about dreaming and wakefulness in general. And I'm not an expert, but I read as one of my favorite subjects is neurology. And anyway, we live this bizarre, we know ideally a third of our life is spent sleeping. That means, of course, that 2/3 is in our sort of normal, quote unquote, normal wakeful state. And our brains being prediction machines and all, they try to predict and understand their environment all the time. And we have lots of practice with that in the 2/3 of the time that we're awake. And we've come to know this as real life and normal. But when we go to sleep, all of us, like tonight, for instance, will become part of a super bizarro psychotic experience that we seem to know nothing about. And it's often either somewhat stressful or just plain, just right off the top, just really kind of scary, actually.
Is that your brain's job to kind of clean out all of the, just the input that you've gotten all day, kind of sort it, collate it, make it sensible, but the process doesn't seem coherent? Is that?
Yeah. That's been my kind of thought on it all. It's like your brain is working constantly to do things, even stuff you're not aware of. It's the involuntary functions of your body and things like that. It's always making decisions on every action you make all the time, nonstop. So when you sleep, it still is kind of keeping those processes that keep you alive going, but it's your brain's chance to kind of throw up or play. It's kind of to play. Your brain gets to play, and
Yeah, that's not a bad way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So anyway, a lot of interest in the science world with this, because they've come to realize a long time ago that we need this sleep. In fact, people who don't get it, or they don't get what they call the REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, which is when you get 90%, I think the statistic is, of all of your dreaming is in rapid eye movement sleep. You get a little bit in the non-REM, but the REM is what seems to be the magic. And interestingly enough, they've done experiments where they just deprive people of sleep generally, but also during REM when they see somebody going, it's very cruel, it seems like. But when they see them going into REM...
Just go stay at some young parent's house. You will be able to catch lots of time with no sleep.
Yeah, how do parents survive? I don't know.
Oh, my God.
But they've shown that if you deprive not just generally of sleep, literally someone can die, like within a month. But they also found that the reason for that is mainly when you're not getting the REM sleep, obviously, if you're not sleeping at all. But if you're deprived just of the REM sleep, it's a similar situation. That's where all the magic is.
So would it be fair to say then that these power naps that a lot of these big corporations rely on, people sleep in 20 minutes in the back room or in the broom closet or something, that really isn't, it's not really fulfilling your body's need for sleep unless you can drop into REM in that 20 minutes and finish it and come back refreshed?
Some people apparently can do it that quickly, and that's why it's people who can take power naps, so to speak, it will actually help them. but a lot of people, I think, it takes longer. There's a period of time where your brain goes through different frequencies, the brainwave frequencies, and you have to get to a certain frequency, in other words, to get into REM in the first place, and that takes some time for most people. But, everybody's different. But anyway, they've shown that, you can just let them sleep most of the night and just interrupt their REM, and they can still sort of possibly even die. It may take longer, but there's something really magic that needs to happen there, even though a lot of these dreams are kind of upsetting a lot of the time and stressful. And you have recurring scenarios that, everybody has their own recurring scenario. For me, it's like I'm always like late to show up for a flight or something. Is
that like your worst nightmare kind of thing? Although you're a laid back kind of guy generally. I wouldn't imagine that you would find that as stressful as one of these clock watcher type people. So that's your biggest nightmare, is being late.
I wouldn't call it a nightmare, but it's that most deep sleep dreaming is a little bit, it's weird. You're in a psychotic world. Everybody lives in a psychotic, bizarro world every night if they attain REM sleep, especially. And so here's an interesting way of looking at it. Let me say it this way. You'll have REM sleep, and sometimes that will kind of jar you up to almost wakefulness.
Okay.
All right. And then, like in the night, especially when it's pitch black in the bedroom, you'll be disoriented, right? Sometimes you'll be thinking, where am I? And you'll be looking around quick, kind of almost in a panic to get enough data with your eyes or your ears to figure out where the hell you are. So disorientation is another thing. Being in a psychotic state sort of is one thing. Then there's being disoriented when that happens. And here's the other thing. When you finally wake up, after a very short period of time, you forget everything that you dreamt, which means that you're demented, right? In a way, right? Because you've lost your memory.
You're using these terms, psychotic, demented. You're using those in a non-scientific way, right?
No, not at all.
Do professionals use those same words, that this is a demented state because you're not fully connected with actualities, or what?
I think the problem is we, in general, don't use them scientifically anymore. We use them as slang almost. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're psychotic, you're demented. We don't use those terms properly. Literally, we use that far. It literally blew my mind. No, it did not literally blow your mind. You know what I mean? We've ruined language by not using stuff properly.
Yeah, no, it's from my reading and research. I'm using some of these terms, and you can look it up. And please do. Anything you hear on the internet, you should always check out for yourself.
Especially at this insane.
But there's things that I'm not completely right on, or I might have forgotten the right term or something. But for the most part, that's the result of my research on this stuff. So anyway, my point is that when you're in your wakeful normal state and you did any one of those things that we all do every night, either it's psycho bizarro world or disoriented world, or the fact that you've completely lost your memory about something that happened just minutes or hours previously, you would be taken to the psych ward, or you'd be taken to the emergency room. But this all happens to every one of us every single night. If you think about it that way, it's really kind of weird.
We all should probably keep a little notebook, and as soon as you wake up from a dream, write down. That would be interesting. It would be interesting to see what your dream was. If you could write down like keywords or
like squirrel,
van, free association.
That is a form of therapy, actually, is to chart what your dreams are and all that thing. Then people will get into this whole idea about put extra meaning to them or whatever. Yeah. Which may be, it's not really a science, but it's interesting they are studying that.
And that's not new. That's not new. Wasn't Daniel of the Bible, wasn't he a dream interpreter for all intents and purposes? And that's, I think, you know.
Well, the rulers back then wanted somebody to, have some sort of extra soothsayer, some extra sight of some sort. And of course, they could tell them whatever they wanted. And if they made up a story about that, as long as it flattered the ruler or whatever, they'd
What
keep
came
him on.
through?
They'd keep him on in the court and wouldn't take their head or something.
See, the dream analysis, I think, should be less about what you're dreaming but more about why you're dreaming it. It's like why, like I find like a lot of the dreams I have. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I'll dream somebody. I'll know who I'm dreaming about, but when I wake up and I realize the person I was dreaming about didn't look like them in my dream.
I was just going to talk about that.
But I know for a fact that's who it was.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, we all have an experience like that, and that's a point. And the other point I needed to make was that, according to the research, the real benefit happens when you do connect. Your brain connects something from your normal wakeful world and the psycho-bizarro world of deep sleep. So there has to be something, apparently, an object or what you just described as a connection between something that is in your normal life. And I agree. Sometimes, for you, for instance, you're my spouse, and I'll know that it's you.
Wait, who are you looking at? Oh,
He
her?
was looking
Okay,
at
you're
me,
looking at her?
This-
and he better be looking at me. And
was
not
using-
anything out the window.
Actually, to be totally honest, I was looking out the window.
Some cougar out there.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway, this is the same way. We'll be in some weird scenario, you and I know it's you, but you don't necessarily look like you.
Is this your dream?
But there's always
The
some.
dream is, okay, it's you, but you don't look like you.
No, you always look
careful.
worse. You always look worse.
Nice save, buddy.
So yeah, that's a common experience, and that is. But so that is a connection to your normal life, and that's where all the benefit happens. They say they put people, they've got the EEGs on their brain and all this stuff, and they're watching all this stuff, and they can tell that the benefit is happening when you connect. It could be a person, it could be an object, it could be a location.
What do they call those? It's like a hat or a headset. The EEG thing. We had one. Remember that one that you had that you could try to, you had to meditate. You had to kind of get yourself into a peaceful mindset. And if you did it successfully, it would literally ring bells like chimes. You could hear church bells. It was the coolest thing. Where is it?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll take it out.
Yeah, we
Can I
should.
tell you about another dream I had?
Sure. Yeah.
It's one I really come to remember. Normally, you have tons of dreams, but this one always stays in my brain for some reason, and there's no real heavy emotional connection or meaning behind it. But it's like being in upstate New York, and so I can still see where this is. It's like in a rural area, and it's like nice summer, green grass, all that stuff. And I'm parking alongside this road, and we get out of the car, and we're walking down kind of like a grass, there's not a real driveway, but you can tell it's one of those things where the grass somebody has driven through the grass enough where it's, and there's a big red barn, and you go around the barn, there's a big white house. And I remember, I'm not getting emotional, I think I have gas. But I remember going inside the White House and walking through that house, and they had everything out on counters with tags on it for sale.
In the dream.
And that's the dream. And I can still see it as vividly today as I dreamt it like a year ago.
How much of that connected to things in your real normal life?
Were you
Not at all, I don't think.
Were you moving?
No,
Were you
here's the
moving
thing.
house?
I don't know, but it's possible, and I've had this experience before, it's possible it is a memory from when I was a child.
Like going to an estate sale or
Something
a
like that.
garage sale.
But I don't know anyone in the dream. I know I'm there and somebody's with me. I don't know who the person with me is. And I couldn't tell you where it was, except it feels like upstate New York, because that's where I grew up. But I do think that it's possible it's a memory, but I don't know, even if it is a memory, I don't know the significance of the memory. Like, where would it have come from? And if it's a dream, I certainly am stuck on why it's a dream.
Have you had this same dream more than once?
Nope, just once, and I
But
know.
it made this impression on you that you literally remember this
Yeah,
dream.
I can see it now as we're talking. I mean,
Do you ponder the significance of this? Let's say, in just downtime. How often would you say you revisit this to try to make sense of it?
no, it's not. It's not like that. It's a curiosity. It's like, huh, what? It's so I'm not like caught up in like it's not an obsession to figure out. But it's like a curiosity. Like some dreams like will bother you. Like if you dream about somebody doing something to you in a dream, you wake up, you're mad at them.
Yes.
And they're like, well, I didn't do anything.
What's your mood in that dream? Because that's interesting. Were you peaceful, curious? How would you describe it?
It's so bizarre because there's like no emotion to it at all. Because it's just basically like kind of like if you're driving around going to a garage sale, how you would feel.
How old were you, if you remember, when you had that dream for the first time?
I just had it like last year.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was probably about the same age I am now, which is 95.
Incredibly.
Doing great, by the way.
That's what I say.
You must be sleeping well because you're
I have
well
to always
preserved.
Add years to my age, so people say, "Wow, you look great for 95."
Not only that, but it explains why your deliveries might be a little bit slower and why you might pop in and use the bathroom.
Great, he's 95.
So go on, tell us more about lucid dreaming.
Well, it can connect in terms of the example that you just gave. It can connect to just a feeling or something that was about to happen. That's why I asked how old you were. If you were younger or something, maybe it's your folks were planning to move house or something like that. And it could be that all your stuff you just have to be gotten rid of or whatever. So it's hard to say, but it doesn't have to be a physical thing like an object or a location or even a person that you kind of know is somebody else. But it can be a feeling or a mood or something that has to be dealt with coming up.
I have had to do that where I've gotten rid of a lot of my stuff to be able to move. Instead of hiring a moving truck or whatever, and I would just kind of get rid of stuff. I've done that a few times recently, so it's
A lot of the times, it's interesting to me that you talk about the feeling toward what the theme of the dream was, that your response to it was kind of neutral. Yeah. Because if you are moving house, you are getting rid of a lot of things. Things have a lot of significance sometimes. Sometimes they're about much more. If it could be a cigar box full of trinkets that you picked up here and there, but that is extremely dear to you because you found this, toy car on a trip with your family. So it isn't really the car itself that you're bonded to, it's that memory of that. And I think so many of these symbolic things, those are triggers for people and they speak to people. I mean, the theory of art is all about that. I mean, if you look at a painting, you look at something, the artists are very good at triggering responses to us that are kind of common to all humanity. And those triggers just cause a visceral response to what you're seeing. And I would think that a dream, your conscious mind is trying to make sense of it. And it probably is doing that, but it isn't doing it in a dictionary kind of way where you look it up, and see, okay, what does this mean? What does that? It just does it because of the collective unconscious. You're responding to it in a way that doesn't pass go, in your head. Go back. Tell me more. I'm dying to hear your dream.
Well, that's the thing. It was about lucid dream in my experience. So I'll get back to that. But just a few nights ago, and it was I had mostly woke up, and then you move over on your opposite side that you've been on, sort of thing, and you get comfortable with your pillow again, and then all of a sudden you realize later that I drifted back off to sleep. And that seems to be, at least in my experience, where the lucid dreaming happens. And you in your mind, your normal mind, let's say, your wakeful mind, knows that you're dreaming, and yet there's this dream scenario going on. And instead of you being kind of completely immersed in the environment of deep dreaming, for me at least, it takes on the character of me sitting in a theater and watching this on a screen.
Like a movie.
Yeah. So I'm not part of it. I know I'm dreaming, so therefore I must be mostly asleep. But it's sort of me like watching whatever this dream scenario is play out on a screen.
Sorry, do you see yourself? Are you watching yourself, or is it a POV? Is it your point of view, or are you watching yourself?
No, it's like I said, it's pretty much like sitting in a movie theater and watching this on a screen. And often,
But you're not on the screen.
no,
You're
I'm
not the protagonist on this.
I'm not part of the dream. That's what seems to be different for me from normal dreaming and lucid dreaming, is that you're not part of it, you're observing it. But for my experience too, luckily for me, I guess, is that a lot of times this dream scenario isn't entirely unpleasant. And sometimes you'll think, "Oh, this is interesting," but I'm watching it. I'm not in it. And sometimes you'll possibly your wakeful part of your brain starts to gain more energy than your dreaming part, and you realize more and more. And I've been in the situation, I've heard other people describe it this way too, is that, oh, I want to go back to sleep. I want to see how this plays out. So I don't know. Have you experienced anything like that yourself?
I have, but now I can't remember specific examples. So I'm sorry, I can't.
That's your demented mind.
Yeah.
From the weird world of dreaming, from that perspective, you're a demented person.
I'm not gonna touch that. You look too eager to have me open my trap and say something. So what was the subject? What were you watching? What was your movie about?
See, I don't remember. So, because from the perspective of even a lucid dreaming state, then I'm demented because I've forgotten. I have memory problems.
So you can't tell all this time? I've been waiting to hear what it was about.
Couldn't tell you. I just know that it wasn't entirely unpleasant. It was interesting. Mm-hmm. So tell me about could you call what your experience is lucid dream, or is it just something close to that?
No, when I have those dreams where I'm not really asleep and I'm conscious that I'm dreaming, I try, as soon as I wake up, I try to make sense of what I saw and what I saw in the dream. And again, for me, it's like looking at art history themes and things like that. One time, I remember it was a particularly difficult period in my life where I really didn't have a bunch of control over anything. There was a lot of stuff happening around me to people that are really close to me, and I wanted to intervene. And I didn't really feel like any of my pearls of wisdom that I've gained over my many, many years on this planet was being taken seriously or even welcome. But I felt like I really wanted to contribute in some way and offer perspective, hope, a few cautionary words. But none of that was being received at that period of time. And I remember this lucid dream that I had.
Were you eating human flesh?
No, it wasn't eating human flesh, but it's funny that you would say eating.
Oh, God.
It was funny. It's funny that you would point to
Not
something
that funny,
oral.
really. It's really not
No,
that funny.
it is, because the theme of the dream was I was losing my teeth.
Oh, God. That's not good.
And teeth are a power symbol. If when I say the word fang, you immediately think that this is something that you should be cautious of. And teeth, a smile. We were talking about alligators the other day.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And crocodile smiles and things like that. But anyway, in that lucid dream, like I say, I wasn't fully out. I was semi-awake, and my teeth were falling out. And so I had a chance, just casually. Who am I? I don't know. But I thought, you know what? That has to connect somehow to my feeling of powerlessness, of superfluousness. And for me, I have several children. And when you are raising children, you're in a very powerful position in their world, and they have to accept what you say to a high degree. At least when they're little, they do, and they seem mostly willing to do that, except bedtimes and eat your spinach and stuff like that. And pick up your toys. And that's universally rejected, I think. But as your kids get older and other people, your parents take on a role of needing care rather than being the ones to provide care or a good plan B for you in your adult life when you're trying to launch other stuff and it's shaky at best whether it's going to succeed or not. So I think that I don't remember a bunch of the ancillary imagery of that dream. The gist of it was, for me, was losing my teeth. And I think, that's not a real hard thing to interpret. And I look back on that and I think to myself, our brains really are a wonderful thing. And I will say two things, and it's kind of timely because this weekend we have the clock change coming up. And when you start messing even on a cyclical basis with everybody's circadian rhythms, like we do when just 1 hour, we're messing with that clock just 1 hour. And I am screwed up for days.
That's part of the disorientation thing that happens.
So a lot of these executives and stuff who think that it's a great thing to have your workforce, sleeping in the office and stuff like that, that is so misguided and so not up with the science.
Isn't that a huge thing they do in Japan, though? They do like naps during the day with their employees and stuff. Mm-hmm.
And those little bullet things that people, it looks kind of caskety.
But also you notice, is it the winter and stuff, when the days are shorter and stuff, that really, when it starts getting dark around 4:30 in the afternoon, that really does affect your moods and how all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I think a lot of that, if you really think about it, when it's like that, you don't have as many outdoor obligations. I mean, just anthropologically. You're not out planting, you're not out harvesting, you're not out, doing a lot of night hunting, that sort of thing. It makes you want to cuddle up under a blanket and go to sleep, which is probably the proper thing to do.
Or sleep in the back of your van.
With the squirrels. With the squirrels, of course.
I'm not gonna ask you.
No, I mean in general. I'm not talking about. I mean hypothetically or whatever.
All right, I don't want that to turn into a
hypothetically, maliciously, or whatever the term is. Is that the wrong term?
Yeah, I would think.
Okay.
I think there's a lot we shouldn't ask him to elaborate on.
So if you dream about a giant squirrel like trampling a city, does that?
What is it with you and squirrels?
Well, the fact that you are saying that in your full wakeful state is maybe a concern. I have some thoughts about it, because one of the big questions in science is, why do we need this? It's such a antithesis to our 2/3 experience of the wakeful state. I have some thoughts, and that is that because your brain is a prediction machine, and everything we gather data in our normal wakeful state, and for the most part, there's a lot of stuff that happens, without notice, and is not pleasant and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, our brains have gathered enough data to be able to predict pretty much, how things are going to be, and this crosses over a little bit into the quantum physics idea a little bit. So I think that when you sleep and you get into this bizarro world, maybe it's an exercise that your brain thinks it needs to understand all possibilities. To deal with all possible situations, then you need practice while you're sleeping to deal with bizarro situations. So I wonder if that might have some validity, possibly. As far as I know, I've never read this as a theory with anybody else, but I got thinking about that one time. I thought, well, maybe. The other thing that's weird, I think, is that what's good for your brain when you're awake? It's things like meditation and mindfulness. And what do they tell you? You got to quiet your monkey brain. You got to
What do you mean
quiet
by
your
monkey
mind.
brain?
Well, that's the term they use because it's always jumping around. Your thoughts are coming and going, and some people have that problem more than others. But that's the term they use. You got to quiet your monkey brain from just switching. Like most animals will you say, oh, in our case, we have the feral cat here that comes around, and we say, oh, it's a cat brain. What do you expect? But that's the term they
Speaking of
use.
cat
They
brain,
say,
it's interesting because I was sitting yesterday, and this is on topic. It doesn't seem like it is. The Kelly, the semi-feral cat that comes around. She comes around regularly enough, and there's places to sit that are comfortable if the weather is bad. And so she goes out in the patio, and it's enjoyable to have her come because now she's gotten to the place she'll let us touch her and pet her and that sort of thing. She doesn't like to be trapped in the house or anything like that.
And then when your butler and servants come and feed her, and
No, it'd be me.
oh, whoops! I wasn't supposed to mention your butler and servants. Sorry.
You'll be looking for a butler job pretty soon. Anyway, I was interested watching her yesterday. She was sitting there, and of course, a little pool of sunshine, but the wind was blowing, so there was kind of a chill to the wind. It never did get very warm here yesterday, but so that pool of sunshine felt really good. And I thought, I'm going to just sit as long as she sits and just see what that feels like, because I was kind of in between stuff. And I tried to do it, and I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I couldn't match her level of stillness. And she was cuddled
that's
up.
where it's an advantage to have a cat brain.
Yeah. And she was very, very still. She was not sleeping. And where I was sitting, and she did come and sit next to me, which shocked me that she chose to sit where I was sitting. Of course, I was sitting in the chair she likes best, but she came there, and I understood after a few minutes why she likes that chair best, because our patio is enclosed. It's a screen room with half wall. I think it's a carport, really, that somebody fixed up in years back. But from that seat, she can see anybody approaching, and it's comfortable enough. And there was a little pool of sunshine at that time of day, which she probably knew and was looking forward to. And she probably just suffered my presence in that same chair. But so we sat there for a while. She never flinched. She wasn't asleep. She just didn't move. And here's me twitching around, shifting position this way and that. And at one point, she kind of turned her head and looked at me. And I know I'm reading into this, but it was almost as if, hey, I wasn't talking or, my movements weren't exaggerated in any way or sharp, but I was just not as still as she was. And it was almost as if she's saying, just, hey, let it down. Let it down.
Well, in terms of finishing the thought about why meditation and mindfulness is good for you, to quiet your mind, then it seems really strange that what you need to help you when you're sleeping is completely the opposite. It's like you have the monkey brain on steroids when you're dreaming. So it's very curious I think with that as an additional example, then there may be something to the idea that you need these opposites, like everything else around us, right?
Yin yang.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think they are connected. Meditation, I believe, is your quest for a quiet consciousness. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, on the flip side of that is your dream, which is chaotic, mm-hmm. and any dream is subconscious because you are not aware. Mm-hmm. Any deep dream is your subconscious acting up. So you can't control that, but meditation helps you control your consciousness.
Yeah.
So it's hard. You can't control your subconscious.
Yeah.
I guess that's.
I think there's something to that. I think maybe just a balance thing.
Makes
A
sense?
balance.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
You're fully wakeful
Yes.
and fully reasonable.
Well, maybe the benefit of sleep is surrendering control. Absolutely surrendering
Like I was saying,
control.
your brain is throwing up. Your brain is playing. It's doing what it wants to do.
Yeah.
It's weird. I always think of the brain as it's bizarre. I always think of the brain as a separate entity than myself.
That explains it. Here we are.
Well, it's true in a way, but we'll save that for another one. But yeah, so Freaky Friday, there you go. We have anything funny to go out on?
I think that we'll pick this up on another time we talk about dreams, but I don't think dreams are maybe always. They can be sometimes the play of the brain for subconscious recreation or whatever. It can also be a memory that your brain is accessing somewhere. So my thing about the sail, walking around the White House and stuff, could be an actual memory. So that's why it that when I was a kid or whatever, that's why there's no emotion to it. But it also could be accessing an alternate reality that does exist somewhere. But that's
parallel dimensions.
There
Okay.
we go. Goodbye.
Next Friday. No, next
Get out of
Friday.
here.
I forgot.
You
Oh, my
didn't
God.
even bring us a package today.
Oh.
Goodbye. Thanks, Des.
See you next time. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.